I'm so glad you could be here this morning. That was joyful music we were listening to, and we're going to continue that by singing "'Tis a Gift to Be Simple." It's number 16 in your hymn book if you want to grab it. We'll sing it through twice. 'Tis a gift to be simple, 'tis a gift to be free, 'tis a gift to come round where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in a place just right, we'll be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend we shan't be ashamed. To turn will be our delight, till by turning we come round right. Once more. 'Tis a gift to be simple, 'tis a gift to be free, 'tis a gift to come round where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend we shan't be ashamed. To turn will be our delight, till by turning we come round right. Thank you. Please be seated.
Good morning. Welcome to Holston Valley Unitarian Universalist Church. I'm Tom Burns, and I'm your service leader for the day. If you're with us on the internet, or if you're with us sitting in the chairs right here, we are one community united in our commitment to each other and our commitment to live out our principles in the world. As we begin today, I want to remind you to silence your cell phones. In fact, Dave Cashin has a message about cell phones that he wants to give right now. I'm going to do an experiment this morning.
So you're aware that we've been having difficulty with our monitors. We think that that signal is projected wirelessly from a device on the wall. And we think that with the updated cell phones in the last 2 years and new cell phones that have come out with 5G capability, that our cell phones may be interfering with that signal that goes from the transmitter to the receiver. So we'd like to try an experiment where everybody turn off your phone. Actually turn it off, power it down. Unless you need to have contact with somebody, that's fine. But if you don't need to have it on, go ahead and power your phone off so that there won't be any signals coming from the phone, and we'll see how that behaves. I can come in here when there's no one around, and it works flawlessly for hours. So I think it has to do with the phones. So let's give that a try.
If you're like me, you don't know how to turn off your cell phone, so it is a gift to be simple. Where was I? To accommodate people who have fragrance and perfume-related sensitivities, this side of the congregation, near the Fred Ballroom, is designated as a fragrance-free zone. We haven't really been communicating about it since we reopened, and it's beginning to affect folks, so please, if you will, try to keep this side fragrance-free. Speaking of flowers, I want to thank Beth Calvert for the hydrangea this morning. Very beautiful. Our speaker today is Charlie Mattioli. He's been a member of our congregation since 2002. Besides offering a dozen or more sermons from this pulpit, Charlie has been on the Board of Trustees, chaired various task forces, and lately he's been very busy, along with several other people, in carving out a beautiful trail on the perimeter of our church grounds. You should check it out if you haven't already. Anyway, Charlie tells me he's very grateful and happy to attend our church. We work together as a church to transform ourselves, our community, and our world by sharing love, pursuing justice, and seeking wonder. We welcome you, old friends and new, young and old. You are an essential part of our celebration today, whether this is your first or your 1,000th Sunday with us. We are stronger because of your presence. We are one people of many beliefs, many origins, sexualities, and genders. We are all growing, all learning, all loved, just as you are. You are welcome here. Charlie has a story for all ages.
I have a story this morning that's based on a poem by Robert Burns called To a Mouse. Robert Burns is called the Bard of Scotland, and he was also called the plowman's poet. He worked very hard as a farmer much of his life, and it also led to him living only 37 years. But during that time, he wrote many songs and many poems, mostly about ordinary people, about simple emotions. He is somebody that became well known around the world. He, the Daily Record in 2009 had a little survey. That's a paper in Scotland, and they asked who's the greatest Scot of all time. And he came in first, beating William Wallace, you know, who you've seen in Braveheart, right? So he's very well respected, very well known and celebrated in Scotland. This poem, To a Mouse, was written in Gaelic and translated into English. He could do both. And it's one that school children in Scotland learn. One of the lines toward the end is, "Of mice and men," which became the title for John Steinbeck's short novel that he's very famous for. This story actually, according to his brother, this actually happened, and he composed this poem, you might say, during the activity where he was plowing a field. And so this is me translating it from poetry stanzas to a story. Once upon a time long ago in Scotland, there lived a plowman named Robert Burns. The hard work of farming showed on his calloused hands and weathered face. He knew the seasons well, and the planting, caring, and harvesting of crops. But more than most farmers in his country, he held the most bountiful wonder and love of nature. His poetic thoughts and his warm-heartedness would often find him talking out loud to the seeds as he planted them, or to the sun as he felt its light and warmth in the soil in the spring. Well, late one fall he was plowing his small field, turning the soil and stubble over, preparing it for next spring. His horse pulled a simple plow, making furrowed lines across the field. Suddenly his plow turned up the grassy nest of a field mouse, which now scurried away in haste and panic. Robert halted his horse. "Mousie, no need to be so frightful and hasty," he shouted. "I'm not one to chase you with my plowshare. I'm truly sorry. I do understand your fear and your ill opinion of we humans. We've broken nature's social contract with all our earth-born companions. We've taken nature as if all of it was only ours." He stood there considering other thoughts and watched the mouse as it hurried farther toward the edge of the field. But he went on talking as if the mouse could hear him. "I have no doubt that at times, Mousie, you may have thieved some of my corn, perhaps a cob or two. It was not wasted. It kept you alive. I'm sure I got blessed that you took it. I never missed it." The mouse by now disappeared in the brush. Robert stood there thinking even more deeply about what he had done and the mouse's plight. And he continued, talking aloud, perhaps believing the mouse could still hear. "Ah, you knew the cold winds of winter would be upon the land, and ye built a house beneath its blast, till crash, the cruel plow passed. I'll bet it cost you many a nibble of grass and time to build. And now, house and hold are all gone, as may be your hopes for enduring the hoary winter's frost." These were dark thoughts to contemplate. He stood there looking up at the leaden autumn skies. The horse and the plow had not moved. From deep within him, he was harvesting a lesson, a truth, that the mouse and the day had offered. The mouse was nowhere to be seen and too far to hear or understand his words, but he spoke them anyway. Mousy, thou art not alone in proving foresight may be in vain. The best laid plans of mice and men often go wrong and leave us with a grief and a pain instead of a promised joy. Still, little mousy, thee are blessed compared to me. Only the present touches thee, but for me, my eyes look backward at prospects drear and forward to things that I can see, but guess and fear.
Stories and poems, of course, are open to interpretation, but for me, the moral of that one is be like Mousy. Just as a fictional story speaks to a part of us that nonfiction usually can't reach in quite the same way, music speaks to a part of us deeper than words. Our special music today is Let It Be a Dance, number 311, written by Rick Maston. This is a slightly different version from the one that's in your hymnals. We invite you to feel the music and indeed let it be a dance.
Yeah, the hymnals won't help you much on this one. His original tune is a little different. The UU organization, when they put it into our hymnal, tried to make it a little more conventional. So this is a little closer to what he wrote. But if you would like to join me on the chorus, let's do that part. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you. Through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Okay, now if you would please stand so you can feel the music. And let's sing that again and I'll go on. Do feel free to dance. I promise, the camera's only aimed up here. It will not be for posterity. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you. Through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. I'm not seeing any dancing. Let a dancing song be heard. Play the music, say the words, and fill the sky with sailing birds. And let it be a dance, let it be a dance, let it be a dance. Learn to follow, learn to lead. Feel the rhythm, feel the need. To reap the harvest, plant the seed. And let it be a dance, let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you. Through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Everybody turn and spin. Let your body learn to bend. And like a willow in the wind, let it be a dance, let it be a dance, let it be a dance. A child is born, the old must die. A time for joy, a time to cry. So take it as it passes by, and let it be a dance, let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you. Through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. The morning star comes out at night. Without the dark there is no light. If nothing's wrong, then nothing's right. So let it be a dance, let it be a dance, let it be a dance. The sun shines, let the sun shine, let it rain. Share the laughter, bear the pain. Round around we go again. So let it be a dance, let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you. With the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance we do. Thank you. Have a seat.
Thanks, Kim. Come to this community with all that you are. Your joys and your concerns are welcome here. We share our moments of joys and sorrows by using these candle cards, if you're with us in person, or by emailing Reverend Tiffany at minister@hvuuc.org with the words candle card in the subject line. Please make sure to indicate whether or not you would like the card read aloud in the service, which is still being broadcast publicly on YouTube. We have a couple of candle cards. One regarding the grandchildren of Noel and Bob, concern for Jason and Jacob, grandsons of Noel and Bob, whose father, George, passed away this week. Another one for Rebecca Rowe, who is in Holston Valley Medical Center and will likely go to rehab on Monday. One concerning Gary McConnell. One of our songbirds, Gary McConnell, needs the help of her friends. Her surgery is delayed till July 13th, but her hip hurts so much, sometimes she has trouble standing long enough to cook. A meal train twice a week is required. That's all she requests. You can go to mealtrain.com to sign up, or see Joy, who's standing back there. She has some things to sign up for. Also, please note that a second meal train is coming next week. A concern has been expressed for Brian Kleski, who will be undergoing open heart bypass surgery tomorrow. This is a hope that his surgery goes smoothly. The hands of those providing care for him are skilled and confident, and his healing process is swift and without complications. Along with this concern, there is joyous gratitude towards all in this beautiful community as you hold him and his family in your hearts and hands. If you want a candle to be lit for yourself, a loved one, or a situation close to your heart, I invite you to make that request by standing or raising your hand as we sing Loving Kindness in just a moment. Then I will acknowledge each of you with a motion of my hand, and then you can sit down or lower your hand after you've been recognized. And we'll light a candle now for you who are not in the building, but are ever in our hearts and minds.
May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be whole. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be whole. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. May we be whole.
and we light a final candle for all that remains unspoken in our hearts and minds.
Good morning. When I was 10, we got our first phone. It was on a small table in a room, connected to the wall with a cable. Of course, to call, you had to pick up the receiver, and we were very carefully instructed, my brother and I, listen for a dial tone. Because if there weren't, and there were voices, you better hang up quickly because we were on a party line. Otherwise, you dial the 7 numbers and you called, and it was quite a wonder. A long-distance call, if you remember, required operator assistance. And if you were out and about, there were phone booths, plentiful, and just about everywhere. But it took a dime or a quarter, depending on when you did this, for your 3 minutes. You planned your call carefully. Who knew? Who even imagined then the phones that all of us are carrying today? Smartphones that magically connect you to the world. And the internet, also not imagined then, without wires. Along with texting and emails that go around the world, it's a browser, a camera, a photo album, calculator, atlas, shopping catalog, search, social and virtual community platform. There's GPS, there's weather, games, banking, and a myriad of other apps in the palm of your hand. You can talk to someone driving your car in Tennessee to someone driving their car in California. You can ask it questions, and it talks back, and it does your bidding. It's a very long list of wonders. Like every new innovation, though, it comes with cost and unintended consequences. There are robo and pocket calls. We get hacked. We have our identity stolen. Our conversations, purchases, and even travels are tracked. Some privacy is lost. Our day is filled with interruptions from calls, texts, tweets, Facebook messages, and a host of offers from businesses and organizations. We often spend more time on it than we do with the people around us. We endure phone conversations in public places. We are more vulnerable to scams, bullying, threats, misinformation, forgetting passwords, and a lack of civility. And you know what? Getting a person on the other end is also problematic. This, too, is a very long list. There are thousands of innovations, discoveries, amenities, conveniences, gadgets, and technologies we use in our modern lives. They all come with benefits and costs and unintended consequences. They all start with someone's imagination and curiosity. They're generated by new technologies that make life easier and make things we want to do faster. We call it progress. It's likely none of the modern world would be here if the warnings from the clergy in pulpits 500 years ago were obeyed. You see, until about the 17th century, curiosity and ambitions and fostering innovation was looked on as desirous seeing, an adultery of the soul, a spiritual drunkenness. St. Augustine would write, "Our desire to know is a lust of the mind and is more dangerous than physical lust." We therefore should not be surprised that religion, myth, philosophy had much to say about forbidden knowledge and human nature. It's an issue found at the beginning of Western civilization, and is still with us today in the anti-science and anti-religion perspectives and tensions of modern life. It is the elephant in the room in our spiritual journey. Few stories are as powerful about the prospect of forbidden knowledge as the biblical story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, eating the fruit from the tree of good and evil. Here we have human beings and their curiosity, abetted by an outside influence, the serpent, committing the first disobedience and transgression against God. And God's punishment was our human loss of innocence immortality, and earthly paradise. Harsh punishment, not only for two newly created, naive human beings, but for every human that would follow. Adam and Eve's behavior were heavily weighed as a perverse curiosity, a competition with God, and the beginning of a fallen world. Further examples followed in the stories of the Tower of Babel and Noah and the flood. The same theme is echoed by the Greeks in their mythology about Prometheus, who steals the fire or reason for human beings. Zeus, the god, is very angry, and his punishment is to give a box or a jar to Pandora, whose curiosity opened it and released all human troubles and evil into the world. Refusing to recognize our limits was the theme of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein and many other pieces of literature during that time. Yet it's difficult for most of us to admit or agree to limits or even the idea of forbidden knowledge. Who's to define such boundaries? Our nation was founded on freedom and free enterprise. Discovery and learning is how we got here. It's how we learn, it's how we make progress. In a real sense, we have opened a box we cannot close. And like Pandora's, it has the potential to do much harm. For we too know of our perverse waywardness. I think Chaucer put it this way: forbid a thing, and we desire it. Even if it threatens our well-being, we have not learned to live well with guns, drugs, plastics, processed foods, chemicals, fast-paced lives, nuclear power, ubiquitous screens vying for our attention, or rapid changes that dislocate lives, just to name a few. We have not learned well to manage our ambition, our vices, and our self-interest. So here we are. We're in the 21st century. Today we're not talking about fruit forbidden by God, but things we have created and whether they are making our lives better. We are now in the garden of modernity, and the tree before us is the tree of hubris and humility. And our challenge is to pick those fruits wisely. This is difficult to do in an age where wisdom is not kept pace with technology, where reason, rationality, and religion all can become entangled in arrogance, miscalculation, and limited vision, where human emotions and irrationality still play a large role in how we see things and what we value, where all cultures contain a presumptiveness and self-interest that regularly escapes those in it, where, as always, pride and greed and arrogance undermine humility. Whereas in every age we are in a bubble of our own making and behind a curtain that cannot foresee unintended consequences. Today, as one writer put it, we are the universe's newest and most ignorant God. Our cleverness has given us powers and technologies that threaten our future with minefields of our own making, that threaten life on the planet. These are profound existential and spiritual challenges. Modern life is isolated in many ways us from nature, connections that sustain life. And with all of this is born an acute absence of the sacred regarding nature and an arrogance that's encouraged by our technological powers. To help understand our predicament, you might want to know how these early warnings faded. What new ideas brought us our modern world? You might consider how our faith in progress requires a keen appreciation of its limitations. You might ponder whether we become too clever for our own good, or worse, whether we're even aware of what the good is that we're striving for. Here's a very brief history of how that happened. By the 16th century, many writers began to challenge the church's arrogance by mixing biblical and theological matters in the mind of God with the human world. Alexander Pope spoke for his age when he said, "Know thyself, presume not God to scan, the proper study of mankind is man." The use of reason became more accepted, and religious authority was questioned more and more, and there became the belief that no authority should be immune to being challenged by reason. And then along comes the Protestant Reformation, dividing Christianity and bringing on hostile wars and political struggles. Jonathan Swift would write, "We have just enough religion to make us hate, but not enough to make us love one another." Sound like something we still have today. Eventually, as science was born in the Renaissance and grew in the Enlightenment, a fellow named Francis Bacon would establish a new vision by declaring that science was the work of God, not the devil. That science was not proud knowledge, but pure knowledge, inquiries into the wonder and the wonders of God. Thomas Jefferson, in celebrating the University of Virginia, went further. He said, "This institution will be based on the illimitable freedom of the human mind, for here we are not afraid to follow the truth wherever it may lead, not to tolerate any error, so long as reason is left to combat it." This is a clear declaration for rationalism, and it has become the mantra for the modern world, and one many of us share. Thomas Huxley would extend that to theological matters, because to him, most religions assuredly claimed the truth with a capital T, which he thought too presumptuous. So he coined a new position and a new word, agnostic. For agnostics, ultimate questions are unknowable, and Huxley advocated an open mind in our spiritual journey. By the end of the 19th century, science and technology were advancing rapidly, and optimism was brimming. There were many who thought humans were on the verge of solving all of nature's riddle. Charles Duell, commissioner of the patents in 1899, supposedly uttered, "Everything that can be invented has been invented." On the other hand, there were still many who saw progress as a transgression of God's will. Humans were not meant to travel at those breakneck speeds of the early automobile. Subways, which they were building then, were going to put people closer to hell. Science was seen as a black art, releasing forces that should be left alone. Our giddiness and our confidence in science and progress would be challenged, and our new powers by the wars and the turmoil and the events of the 20th century. Nicholas Rescher would write, "The completeness of science is an illusion. Nature is inexhaustible. It has no bottoms. Our questions never cease. There are no final truths. Some information is simply not safe for us because it is a sort of thing we're not well suited to cope with." We began to question the limitations of reason, the inevitability of progress. Was Montaigne perhaps right that culture and custom were the only foundation and roots of reason when he wrote, "We are all huddled and concentrated in ourselves, and our vision is limited to the length of our nose"? A lot of thoughtful modern writers saw the seeds of dystopias and not the utopias so many hoped progress would bring. Some of these should be familiar to you. The Time Machine, Fahrenheit 451, 1984, Brave New World. These and others are celebrated for their insight into our foibles and the dangers that come with our technological advances and authoritarian regimes. Recent movies continue this very pessimistic depiction. Blade Runner, Gattaca, Her, Mad Max, The Matrix, even Star Wars, all speak of continued warfare, greed, ecological disaster, technological misuse, and dehumanization. We now have genome sequencing, editing, and splicing. We can play God. A new biotech called Gene Drive can eradicate or change an entire well population. Right now in Texas, they're experimenting with this. That might sound like a good idea, but you have to ask the question, what life form is next? What unintended consequences will come from this? A new level of power requires a new level of understanding and the idea that it can be misused. How will all of this impact you and those you love? What diet of fruits will we choose from the tree of hubris and humility? You know what our modern acquired taste is? The preference for hubris. History has shown it's all about us. We sadly have not fully learned that our notions of control over nature or ourselves are but illusions. Francis Bacon, the prophet of modern science we just heard from, wrote, "The deepest fallacies of the human mind lay in the idols of the tribe, the den, the marketplace, and of the theater." Robert Schulich wrote, "We put our optimism in believing that prudence and control will save us. But we should know, too, that prudence loses ground to ambition, greed, and the sheer momentum of discovery. To curiosity have been added the entangling factors of progress, compulsive consumerism, free enterprise, and a semi-autonomous technology." If historian Arthur Herman is correct, and his case is very persuasive if you've ever read his book, the one culture that most invented our modern world was the Scots. They gave us much of the political, economic, and social, technological underpinnings of our modern world. And in doing so, they wrestled with critical issue. Herman wrote, and this is his quote, "The great insight of their 18th century Scottish Enlightenment was to insist that human beings need to free themselves from myths and see the world as it truly is." They delved into that problem with great seriousness. They were great believers in freedom, but they recognized its tensions. Liberty, which preserves individuals. Authority, which preserves societies. Human nature, which may have an innate goodness, maybe respond to education, versus a cool, skeptical distrust of human intentions. What humans ought to be, and what we really are and generally remain. That free enterprise and a moral society require self-interest properly understood. That private happiness requires public happiness. That morality depends putting ourselves in another person's place and them in ours. That personal obligations have to be balanced with individual rights. If some of this sounds familiar, it's because it is. Our founding fathers read these books. We're very familiar. Some of them had these people at Scots as teachers when they came over here. Their books were in all of their libraries, and many of their phrases were in the Declaration of Independence and the basis for our Constitution. Today, we may not be facing these tensions of the modern world as directly or deeply as the Scots. What do we put our faith in? Should we be asking more questions and giving more considerations about what is good for us? What unintended consequences come from the things we choose? Might we ask ourselves what the trade-offs are with our modern conveniences and technology? Should we consider how communities and mental health and humanity are affected by the world we're making? How our hurried, distracted lives and incessant wants are getting in the way of contentment and joy? In short, shouldn't we be asking, What makes a life worth living? Are the fantasies and entertainment and scripted realities and games we indulge in, like sugar, taking us away from healthier appetites of thought, reflection, and action? What is it we hold sacred? Today, we can conveniently carry our own little digital world around with us that agree with our views, our interests, our opinions. Unwittingly, we isolate ourselves and we feed polarization. Maybe we should be asking, how can we build healthy communities? This is all pretty heavy stuff, but it's only the latest heavy stuff in our human adventure and civilization. This is our time and these are our challenges. Real change most often occurs with individuals, in bits and pieces, in different corners, and by choices we make at the counter, more than centralized and national decrees. It occurs most powerfully when we weigh our children's future against old habits and practices and outlooks that will not serve them well. It occurs most effectively when there's a feeling of trust and community acting together. It perseveres when it is nurtured by hearts that value love, compassion, and justice. And those are things we can all work for. We can courageously speak for. Radical hospitality, recognizing each other's humanity, is more important than ever. It promotes generosity of spirit and sustenance to both those we know and strangers. We can remind others with our voice and our actions that the core challenges of every faith are universal. Love thy neighbor. Live by the golden rule. Offer hospitality to strangers. Remember your obligation to those less fortunate. My favorite biblical scripture that connects our faith with action is Micah's answer to the question, what does the Lord require of us? To do justice, to love mercy, and walk humbly with our God. How concise and beautiful. I, like many of you, am at an age where the importance I assign to this challenge and my hope for finding a way through are not born from my own life, but our children, our grandchildren, and those that come after. Our wish for them is a vibrant and healthy earth that's filled with beauty and wonder, that sustains life, that inspires and grants peace. It is for a humanity where love, justice, and compassion are well practiced. It is a vision that is the centerpiece of this church. We should neither be naive nor jaded in predicting the outcome, the future. Not naive to believe that human progress is inevitable. It's always in an upward slope. Not jaded to condemn everything that's new and what's to come from it. Every age, every generation has to deal with serious challenges. They could see no further than we can, nor better. Though when you read history, it may seem so, because it's 20/20 hindsight. Whatever our spiritual perspective or personal philosophy of life, we need to grapple with these basic questions about our human nature, the limitations of reason, and what progress really means. Our answers will mark out the world we live in. Some final thoughts. Don't let the news media become your lens through which you see the world. Remember the beauty, the civility, the joy, generosity, warmth, and lovely people that you can come in contact with and experience every day. Don't let distractions keep you from living in the present, in community, and with nature. Your greatest adventure is your life. And don't wait for the world to change or mass movements to make the future. Start with yourself, and every day, try to be more self-aware and part of the answer to the questions, what makes a life worth living? What can I do to build community? Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie, for the generosity of your message and its provocativeness and thoughtfulness. We extinguish this flame, but we keep its light in our hearts with its message of love and justice, taking it outside these walls to the world we live in until we are together again. One of the great things about being Unitarian Universalist is that we all engage in the free and responsible search for truth and meaning together. On the Sunday closest to the 4th of July, we celebrate this collective search with our Soapbox Sunday service. Instead of having one preacher, our friends and members sign up to have a few minutes behind the pulpit to get up on their metaphorical soapbox and tell us something about they're passionate about. To sign up for or more information about it, email Reverend Tiffany, again at minister@hvuuc.org. We thank you for being with us today. You can learn more about the many opportunities for fellowship, justice work, and working together by visiting our website, hvuuc.org, and checking out news and events section. The benediction this morning comes from words from Maureen Killeran, who has indeed preached from this pulpit before. She writes, "No matter how challenged we may feel, we each have gifts that can make a difference in the world. In this coming week, may you do at least one thing to support the broken, to welcome the stranger, to celebrate what is worthy, to do the work of justice and love. Be strong, be connected. Each day act so you may be more completely who you are." Kim is coming back up here, I believe, to lead us in our closing hymn. And this is also where we'll pass the offering plate around. The contributions that you make during the offering support the ways that we care for each other within this community and also give us the resources we need to stretch out beyond these walls to make a positive impact in the world. If you're making a pledge payment, please mark it as such. And thank you so much for your contributions. Our closing hymn is "This Little Light of Mine," number 118. Please rise in body or spirit.
All right, as the benediction said, this is our time to let our light shine out in the world. All right? This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Building up a world, building up a world. I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.